Hey guys, good morning, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Today I'm going to make, and I'm going live today because I was like, oh, you know what? Haven't gone live in a while. And I really wanted to support Wendy, who made a request around like soups that would be great for what's happening in California. So really the conditions that we're targeting are dry heat. So very hot, very dry conditions, more wind heat conditions, and something to cool the body. And so essentially, I was going through Superwell's pack of gifts that she gave me, and this is great. So what we've got today is a cough relief and nasal decongestion soup. So the idea is it actually addresses dry cough, not wet cough where you've got phlegm. And so what we're going to do is open this pack. I'm going to add one additional ingredient. I'll explain why. But the idea of this is it's really to help with dry coughs, nourish the throat and lungs, and bring moisture to the body. So that's kind of what's happening in terms of Wendy's ask and what's going on in California and the weather conditions there. So this is really good for dry, heaty conditions, for dry coughs, and if you want to moisturize your lungs and your body. So why don't we go through this pack first, and I'll tell you what the ingredients are and what the design of the soup is. Again, soup packs are the best because what happens is that they're already pre-made and pre-organized, so you don't have to buy everything in bulk. So let's go through the ingredients. I'll talk about each of the ingredients, and you can buy them on your own separately. You can buy them in soup packs. So Superwell, superwell.ca, I think, or .com, superwell.com. I'll tag her Instagram afterwards, is here. And so this essentially is the soup pack that we're talking about, and I'm going to open all the ingredients. You can see the ingredients are pre-packed for you. Here, there's 2 of them, and I will use them all today. So essentially, this serves about 2 to 3 people. Why don't we go through the ingredients one by one, and I'll explain what the benefits are and why it's going to support dry conditions, moisturizing the body, moisturizing the lungs, and eliminating a very dry cough. So as I said before, this is not really for warming the body, it's actually for cooling the body. So when you're in heaty conditions, drier conditions, especially wind heat, and dry coughs, this is really great. The key one that I know, and just based on experience in general, is to moisturize, to cool the body, snow pears. So you can use either dried snow pears or fresh snow pears. Why don't we just do this and you can see. So dried snow pears or wet snow pears actually help with this condition. And we've also got, so here we go, the snow pears. So I'm going to make a bigger pot of soup today. That's a good amount. So this is going to probably make for 4 people, 4 to 6 people. So snow pears, really good for dry conditions, moisturizing the body, dispelling heat, reducing fire, and producing fluids in the body. So that's what dried snow pear is really good for. So again, oh, here's another one. So again, you can buy this separately or buy it in a pack like this. The other thing that's really nice about this pack is dried Chinese yam. This is what they look like. And you can get them fresh as well. So fresh Chinese yam, or sorry, let me come back. Fresh Chinese yam actually is just really long. It's got brown outsides. I'll show a picture later. It's different from like Western versions of yam. This is the white yam. And in Asia, it's called yam as well. But it's not the sweet potatoes that traditionally you can find here in North America. And so dried yam like this is actually really good for thirst. So if you're thirsty, you're feeling thirsty all the time, put yams in your soup. These dried ones are really, really good. All right, we've got here also is shiitake mushrooms. Let's go back down here so you can see. Sorry, I can't see the comments now, but I will get back to you guys when I pause. So the dried shiitake mushrooms really are for flavor. And so these are really good. It tonifies the chi. We've also got in here figs. I'm going to take them out here. So these dried figs, they're really small. You can use bigger ones too. I also have the big figs that you can get at the Western supermarkets. So the big figs, the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean types, you can also use. They're actually very flavorful, create a sweetness to the soup. All right, come back down. You can keep seeing as I unpack this for you. Oh, another snow pear. So the figs actually also clears heat. This is a great thing about figs. They promote fluid in the body, including saliva, so it will make you create more saliva, more body fluids, and removes toxicity, which is great for Wendy's ask about clearing toxins that are in the air right now with what's happening in California. All right, so some of these ingredients are not so easy to take apart. For those that are joining, I'll explain what I'm doing right now. I've got a soup pack that I've got from Superwell. She was so kind, she gave them to me as Christmas gifts. And I found one that's really great for one of the users who asked about really dry, heaty conditions, wind heat, and dispelling toxicity. And so that's kind of what's happening in California right now. And so this is perfect for it, with one addition that I'm going to add as well. And then I'll talk about what else I'm adding to the dry base today in terms of meat as well as vegetables. And so, all right, everything else here is kind of like all mashed together anyway. So we've got dried apricot kernels, which is perfect for cough, dry coughs. Anytime you've got a cough, dry apricot kernels are great for desserts and soups. I'm just going to pour this all out. Okay, you can watch as I pour this all out. All right, here we go. Because I cannot separate them right now. And, all right. Oopsies. All right, here we go. Okay, there. And all these, like, hold on. All these other bits here. Let me throw this out. All right, so some of this stuff here are dried pea protein, which is quite neat, a new addition that Tasha's put into her soup packages. And then we've also got, what's quite neat is Chuan Bei. Okay, let me take this out and show you guys. So Chuan Bei, I mean, I don't know what the English word is, there's a technical name for it, are these little fellows here. They're little round white fellows. And if anyone has chun paper, go like the black cough medicine, essentially it's made of that stuff, right? So Chuan Bei is a dried little round, I guess it's like kind of like in the wheat category, maybe. I'm not sure, I have to look this up. But the idea is that they actually help with coughs, dry coughs, moist coughs as well, which is perfect for this type of soup. And so what's going to happen is, let's go back down here. I'll show you what's happening in the ingredient base. And then we've got apricot kernels, which are great for coughs, dry coughs, and lubricating the lungs. The Chuan Bei, which I said already is a little bit warming, but it regulates qi. And it's really good for coughs. So this is really good in terms of regulating qi, these little round guys here. And they're not easy to find necessarily. I mean, you could find them in Asia really commonly, but here as the dried ingredient, not so much. All right, the dried pears, dried mushrooms, Chinese yam, and dried figs. All right, what I am adding today to this is it's going to be dried lily bulbs. Dried lily bulbs are actually cooling, helps bring moisture to the body, and they calm the spirit and dispels cough. So I would really suggest in very dry, hot, heat conditions, lily bulbs are actually your biggest friend. And so lily bulbs, you can get them dried like this. Let me show you. So they look like this, and they're really they look like flowers, like the flower of the petal, the lily bulb. You could buy them fresh as well. And when you get them fresh, they look like, literally like a bulb like this. They're white. The one thing with lily bulbs, though, they dissolve in the soup. So what they do, it actually thickens the soup at the very bottom. And so again, if you've got kids, they see all this white stuff floating around. Take caution with that, or don't put that many. So lily bulb is the addition I'm going to add to this soup. All right, and then let me talk about the vegetables today and the meat base. If you're doing a cooling soup, and I've mentioned this before, pork is your friend. It tends to be more pork. Even fish, to a certain extent, is more of the cooling side of the base that you want to use. Whereas chicken tends to be for warmer soups. Beef, the Chinese don't use beef so much, although it does come in here and there. It's more a Korean thing. So for making Chinese soups, it tends to be pork, chicken, fish. That's about it in general in terms of like the repertoire of soups. I'll be right back, and I'm going to take out the fresh ingredients. Hold on. Just going to the fridge to get out my lotus root and pork bones. All right, so today I'm going with, as I said, cooling soups, pork. So this is just, this was on sale. This is pork backbone, and again, not a lot of meat, more bones, and so I'm going to use this in my soup as well. And then if we're doing for a cooler soup that's going to moisturize the body, lotus root. All right, so here we go, like this. And essentially you want the root to be really firm when you buy it. Like, do you hear that? That's what you want, like a bounce. So when you're buying lotus root, make sure it's firm, crisp, and bouncy. And so this means it's quite fresh. And what they tend to do is keep it in water when you're buying it. And I'll show you, I'm going to clean this and chop it. They're very stringy, which is quite interesting. So how you cut it is completely up to you, but I'll talk about that. So essentially, this is what I'm making today for those joining. It's going to be a lung-nourishing, heat-reducing, moisturizing soup. And this is really for dry, heaty conditions and clearing toxicity, especially trying really to help with the lungs. So I'm going to pause here. If you have any questions, just drop it in. I can see what's going on. So essentially, I want to talk about really quickly, before I move on, about my thermal pot, because it feels like there's a lot of questions sometimes when I'm using the pot, and it seems it's not so common in the West. So I'll really quickly explain what it is. This is my thermal pot. This is what I'm cooking it in today. The thermal pot, come down. The thermal pot essentially is Japanese technology. So it's more common in Asia, definitely Hong Kong. It's actually got one pot inside another pot. And this outer pot, there's a thickness to it right here. And this outer pot is actually insulated, which is fascinating because there's a technology there that actually keeps it hot and warm. And so the idea is that you cook everything in this pot. You don't put it on this because the bottom is plastic. You cook everything in here, and then you drop it into the pot, walk away. And so that's what I'm going to do today. So this is why I'm making my dinner soup so early in the morning. And again, it's a great idea to conserve energy, conserve time. I literally put it in and then I walk away for the rest of the day, and it kind of gently cooks within itself because of the insulated outer layer, right? This outer layer here. You can't put this on the stove because it's plastic on the bottom. And so that's essentially what the thermal pot is. And I know people ask every time they see it, and they see me drop it in, and then I come back later and I reheat it in the evening. But that's what this pot is for. It's really to save time and energy, so that I'm not watching it over a long period of time. So because I'm efficient, I'm now going to fill my pot first, have my pot boil, then I'm going to work on blanching the pork. So stay with me as I fill this with water. It's going to be about maybe, let's see, I don't know, 3 liters? Sounds about right. I usually do about 3 liters for my family. 1 second as I'm filling this. All right, let's just start the stove. So this is me being efficient, okay? For people wondering what's going on, I will do things in parts in order. It's like a project plan. I'll do things in order of what needs time first. So there's dependencies that are happening, so I'm not kind of waiting. And this is also just to flow the live a little bit better. All right, so probably doing around 3 liters of, no, that's not enough. More. Let's see, we're doing about 4 liters of water for a family of 3 to 4. All right, great. So that's starting. And the fun part, question about, do you blanch in cold water or hot water? That's a great question. Today I'm going to be blanching pork. Optional to blanch, but I do blanch, and I'll show you why. Because it does get a lot of the foam, the debris, the blood, and you'll notice it foaming really brown. That's why I blanch first and then put it in quite clean. All right, so the question is, do you blanch your bones in cold water or hot water? Let me explain the two sides of the theory, and then we can talk about it. So you will blanch in cold water. What happens if you're blanching your bones in cold water is that it gives it time for everything to dissolve out, right? So you've got the blood that will come out. You've got some of the proteins that will come out. Whatever essentially is, because it's dissolving in water as it warms, there is a lapse in which the proteins, anything inside the bones, can come out and dissolve into the water. That's what happens with cold water. What happens with boiling water, if we think about it, it's boiling, you put the bones in. What happens is it's a flash boil, right? Essentially, as you drop it into the water, the heat is going to lock in all the proteins and everything and cook it right away. And so the question is not so much what's the right way to blanch, whether it's cold water or hot water. The real question is, what do you want in your soup, right? If you want all that stuff as well, some people love pork blood, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm going to put pork blood. That's completely up to you. I personally have done both. And from observations, there's more brown foam when I'm blanching in cold water first. So come with me. This water is cold. And so what I'm gonna do is just drop in the bones into cold water and let that cook to a boil. And as soon as it boils, the blanching is done. So this is just me personally. I have found, there's a lot of bones here. I have found that when I blanch in cold water, there's a lot more foam. But given that, I think I should do an experiment and test this out with both. I mean, I have no scientific way to measure it because I'm not really measuring percent of protein in the water at this time because I don't have the equipment to do that. And so, all right, here, you could come with me as I show you the blanching. All right, so what's happening now is, the question is, do I blanch in cold water or hot water? So me personally, today I'm blanching in, there's no salt here. Today, personally, I'm blanching in cold water, and we just talked about why. There's a little bit of salt in the blanching water. And so we just talked about why the blanching in cold water allows time for the proteins, the blood inside the bones to come out. It takes time to dissolve into the water, and then by that time it boils, everything's cooked and locked, most of the stuff's dissolved out. That's why you would boil in cold water. You would blanch in cold water, sorry. Again, some people blanch in boiling water. If you blanch in boiling water, it cooks the stuff right away and everything just stays in. And again, it's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong way to make soup or blanch, to be honest with you. It's what do you want in your soup? What is the soup experience? What is the taste, the textures that you're looking for? So I find when I'm blanching in cold water, there's a lot of foam. There's a lot more foam versus boiling water. But let's hold that hypothesis, and I will do an experiment to do both, and let's see. It'll probably be purely visual observations rather than anything measured. All right, so what we've got going right now for those joining is I'm making a cough relief and this is nasal decongestion, lung clearing, moisturizing soup. So this is really for dry, heaty conditions, dry wind. What you want to do is moisturize the body, heal a dry cough, so no phlegm or minimal phlegm, and clear toxins from the body. I've got my soup water going right here, and I'm going to bring that to a boil. I've got my blanch going, in cold water going. What we're going to do now is prepare the lotus root. And so I talked about lotus root as an ingredient. It's very lovely. Let me wash it first. Just stay right there. All right, lotus root, just for those who don't commonly use lotus root, is a pretty muddy ingredient. And that's because it actually grows in the soil. And so, where's my butcher's knife? All right, so a few things that you can do to prepare lotus root. This is lotus root. Lotus roots are very, a little bit cooling, helps calm the mind, and perfect for these conditions where it's dry and it's hot. Again, choice on what you want to do with the lotus root. Some people will peel it, some people will not. I prefer to peel it because this one's quite marked and dirty, and I couldn't really quite scrub it clean, but it's completely up to you. And when you go to the supermarket to buy it, you can buy as much or as little as you want. And when you crack it, you want it to sound crisp. Lotus root, if you're shopping for lotus root, you want it crispy. So I was showing earlier, this is quite cute. You hear that? You want it to sound like that. And when it cuts, it wants to be like crisp, clean sound. So that means the lotus root is still fresh and usable. And so what I'm gonna do is, you can watch here as I do this. Again, I still have not gone over this like live thing about people watching you do something. I get it, but maybe because I don't like wasting time or wasting people's time, but you are here by choice. All right, so again, optionally to peel as you wish. And what I'll do is cut off the ends. Okay, here's what's happening, right? So lotus root grows in mud. And so even inside these things, after you cut it, there still might be some residues of mud. So I will give it a rinse again after I cut them. Okay, let me peel. You watch as I peel this. Lotus roots, by the way, are stringy roots. So when you eat them, what happens is there's a lot of fibers inside, which are great because they're really good for, it's a super fibrous root, helps you digest and go poo. All right, see what I mean about, all right, what I'm gonna do is clean them once more, just run them under cool water to clean all the dirt that resides within the lotus root middles. 1 second. But again, your choice. This is my choice as well. All right, how do you want to cut the lotus roots today? So a few options. Some people cut them big, so the Chinese tend to cut them in like not so pretty big chunks so that you go with the grain and it's not so stringy, right? So, okay, I'll show one way. That's one way to cut it. And this tends to be the Chinese way in terms of cutting lotus roots, just long pieces, big chunks, and see, it's already fibrous. This is one option of cutting your lotus roots. Okay, like in chunks like this. And again, the lotus root itself doesn't soften very much in the soup. It'll still remain crunchy in the soup. The other way to cut it is actually the pretty way, which is this way, like this. The Koreans cut it this way as well. That's how they marinate. And then if you're stuffing them, the Vietnamese stuff them with green beans. The Chinese do it as well. You cut them like this as well, quite fat. So again, your choice. I'm doing both just to show and demonstrate how it's possible. All right, so we've got our lotus root. We've got all our dried ingredients right here, which came out of the pack. I've added extra lily bulbs, and I said dry lily bulbs, not just dry ones, are amazing for clearing heat, stopping coughs with no phlegm, and dry coughs, and helps calm the spirit. And so this is what we're making today as a soup. Super easy soup to make. The pack comes like this, so you just take it off and have the dried ingredients. Add a vegetable, and again, soup design, just think about the soup design concept, right? And so today is going to be a cooling soup. So what you want to work with are vegetables that are more cooling. Melons are great. The lotus root is fantastic. Dried pears are fantastic as well. So nothing's so warming, but corn is neutral, carrots is a little bit cooling. So I've got a post that kind of shows the scale of cool and warm ingredients that you can think about as well. All right, let's check on my blanch. This is boiling, that's blanching. Everything's prepared. It's a super easy soup today. In general, I think any soup like this with easy prepared herb base and one vegetable, pork bones, 30 minutes, you could prepare, and then drop it into the thermal pot as soon as it boils, and then walk away. And so that's why I'm making it at 9 in the morning. So I'm like, why are you making soup at 9 in the morning? This is why. It's because I make it now in the morning, get it out of the way, 30 minutes of my day, drop it in the thermal cooker, and then I'll leave it, just let it cooking by itself for the duration of the day, and then I'll come back in the evening and then we'll have soup. So that's why I'm making it so early. But again, that's the benefit of having a thermal pot. People asking, is it similar to like a pressure cooker, Instapot? Very similar, except that there's no heat source. The heat source is itself. So I don't need it plugged in, which is fantastic because it saves electricity. All right, let's go and look at my blanching thing. I gotta put this down. So here, 1 second. Oh, you can see my bikes. 2 of my 4 bikes there. All right. So this is blanching right now. What I want to do is just make sure everything's submerged. And as soon as it comes to a full boil, that's kind of when I'll stop. And see, the foam is starting to come out. And oopsies. And as long as this comes to a full boil, you'll notice that there's way more foam that comes out. And it's actually quite interesting as a technique, a cooking technique. Right, and so we'll let that boil for a little bit longer. And then what I'll do is show you how I'm going to clean this. Essentially, it's just pouring the water out, rinsing it in warm water, and then I will be using it into the soup. And that's really how easy it is to make Chinese soups. And so some of it are harder. Of course, if you're using raw chicken, you need to prepare the chicken. If you're doing coconuts. But in general, if you're using pork bones, one vegetable, and your soup base, it's quite easy. It's literally you wait for this to boil, and then everything goes in. boil that for 30 minutes, and then I'll transfer it to the thermal cooker. So that's it. So for people joining, wait, I gotta keep an eye on that because it may boil over. Okay, so for people joining, what I'm making today is a continuation of some of the requests for the dry, hot, toxic conditions that are happening in California. But again, you can use this for any dry, hot conditions right now, which is not really common around the world, but it was an interesting request that I wanted to support with. So what we want to do is clear heat from the body, clear toxins, and relieve cough. Yes, and essentially clear heat, right? And so moisturize the body. And so there's a selection of herbs here, which I will actually eventually post. But how I know it's more moisturizing and cooling is the dry snow pears. I like them. Ooh, I hear something. All right, hold on. Okay, so turn off the heat. Oh, now it's getting out of control. Okay. So what happens is, let me show you, I have to figure this out. All right, situation managed. All right, I'm gonna move you to the sink and you can watch as I clean this and how this works. 1 second, right there. Okay, so I'll move this out of the way. All right, if you can see this, so what's gonna happen is with care, because it is hot. So actually not too bad today, there's not a lot of foam, but essentially what do you do? As soon as it boils, what I'm gonna do is get this on warm water, like coolish water, pour it out, and just really rinse. And I know, hold on. People are saying, oh, but look, you're wasting so much of the milky broth already. Yeah, I know, that happens. But there's a trade-off, right? Essentially, hold on. So you're gonna slosh it around and rinse as much of that gunk as possible. The fat, there's a lot. There's like, I see some fat there that I wanna get rid of. All right. And you can see there's so much more debris as you rinse it that comes out of the soup. All right. Last rinse, and then we're done. Okay, perfect. Something like that. That works. It's still really hot though. Okay, perfect. And so this is your clean, blanched pork bones. Come back with me. Let me grab you. It's funny how you follow me around. All right, let's go back to the soup. Okay, so you'll have to pardon my bikes. Oh, those who are curious, that's my road bike. It's my indoor bike, on the trainer. And the road bike is off season right now. Okay, this is boiling, by the way. So I'm gonna just reduce heat and transfer the bones here and then drop everything in together. And then I'm done. All right. So, pork bones first, but it doesn't matter. Essentially, once it's boiling, you can drop everything in. All right, so today, it's pretty easy to blanch bones, especially pork bones that are pre-cut like this. Although I have a suspicion these bones are gonna output a lot of stuff because you can see already, like there's fat here on the sides, which will eventually boil out, and that's okay because that's what we have the oil scooper for, which I will show you. I've used it before. You could see it in my posts, and essentially it's really thin, meshed scooper. All right, so there, that's done. I'm seeing what the best angle for you is. Hold on. All right, you can see it here. There, can you see better? Look at this. Have you ever cleaned the blanched pork bones and freeze to use later? Yes, I have. You can do that. I do it in batch and do it in bulk. So chicken is great, pork is great. So yes, if you're gonna do economies of scale, I would suggest, like, especially if I was boiling it, rinse it and do it a few times. And especially this batch is a big one. But I decided to put all the bones in, but absolutely you can do that. So I do sometimes do that. I have a lot of like different meats in there sometimes. I'm like, oh, I feel like using this meat. So Elisa, for the soup packs that I prepare ahead of time, same concept. Pre-blanch everything, pre-cut everything, put into like the soup packs, vacuum seal, and then put in the freezer. And when you put in the soup in the water, it's already clean, right? And so if you're gonna do the effort anyway, so I do that. And yeah, of course, if you have time and you wanna just make it easier for yourself. Still boiling, everything's in. Hold on, so now I'm gonna just drop in the fresh lotus roots, like that. Oh, yay. And the final pieces. All right, so that was just like 2 small pieces of lotus roots, and the soup is getting quite full. And then my herb base. So again, let me go through the ingredients as I drop them in. This is a cooling soup that helps reduce from dry heat. That is the purpose, the design of this soup. Key ingredient really is actually the lotus root helps. Dried snow pears, absolute perfect for moisturizing the body, reducing heat, reducing cough. Dried lily bulbs, also perfect for moisturizing the body. Actually, this is really great for dry coughs. Not if you have wet coughs or phlegm, I wouldn't suggest it. Use it for dry coughs, perfect. You could use dried lily bulbs or even fresh lily bulbs, which are really common in Asia supermarkets. They're fresh, they're white, they're really cool. They're white bulbs. They don't last very long in the fridge though, maybe about a week. And they're very dirty, so you have to wash them. Chinese yam, which is perfect for eliminating thirst. You can use dried or fresh, depending on what you want. Shiitake mushrooms, really good for flavor. Dried figs, perfect also for bringing moisture to the body. Actually, this helps you salitate, is that the word? I can't see it, but anyways, it helps you create saliva. Helps you generate more saliva and fluid in the body. There's not many here. I would add more actually if I could. And then this whole bunch of stuff which I can't really separate. Chuan Bei. Trying to think of the English name, I'm sorry. Chuan Bei. But any of you who eat chipu pepako, the black cough liquid that apparently my kids told me, here's a fun fact, that Ariana Grande was drinking when she was filming for Wicked. And she's like, this Chinese concoction that's black and thick and syrupy. Yeah, it's this stuff actually, Chuan Bei, that is really good for the throat, lungs, and cough. And so we're actually adding this to the soup today. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see. All right, Chuan Bei, apricot kernels, definitely a must-have if you're coughing. These things, these little things, both north and south. So you'll see that the north ones are fatter. I can't see them right now. Fatter and thicker and bitter. And the south ones, I can't remember which is which, I keep mixing them up. And then also what Tash has got here is pea protein, these little things for vegetarians. And it's really to add more protein to the soup. Ta-da! There we go. In case you want to go all vegetarian. All right, and so come look at the soup as it boils, like that, okay? Doesn't look very pretty right now, but that's okay. And so that's essentially it, right? 30 minutes. So let's see. Yes, the time is 9:33 right now. And I've been talking quite a bit already and just explaining the ingredients. But literally, if you wanted to make the soup yourself, it could be a 15-minute prep job. Put everything in the soup. Sorry, I forgot to cover it. All right. Okay. 15-minute job to get your soup prepared. And then what I'm gonna do is keep it on the stovetop for 30 minutes. And the idea is to really just let that boil and come together and allow some of the flavors to mix and the ingredients to soften. And then what I'm gonna do is move it over there to the thermal pot. And then it will continue cooking by itself for the rest of the day until dinner. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. It's the pea protein that makes it look really funny. I've never tried pea protein before. And this is something that Tash has got that's new in her pack. But you know, Chinese soups in general actually don't look really pretty all the time. They're not the beautiful Western soup where they sprinkle like parsley or things on top. In general, it's just everything thrown together and boiled massively, unless they prearrange it, right? And so, yes, Vince, that's very true. And then, so what I'll do is let me go back. Oh yes, I'll let the soup boil. Probably on a medium boil for 30 minutes. And then I'm gonna move it to the thermal pot. And then in the thermal pot, it's just gonna sit there all day pretty much until dinner time. And then I'll reboil and serve. And so the point of the thermal pot is that it cooks by itself. Essentially, it's an induction cooker. So not induction in the way of heat transfer, but induction within itself, right? And so the whole point is that it's thermal insulated on the outside of this pot. And then the idea is it retains heat. It's a very high retention heat, very high retention rate of heat. And for those who did thermodynamics, how fun. And so essentially that's what it is, right? So retention of heat, and because there's some heat it still microcirculates within, but not heavy, right? And so that's me being lazy and making soup at 9:30 in the morning so that I can have soup and dinner at night. And so this is perfect for working families, people that have a long day who need to go out. You don't need to watch your soup. Essentially, it's still cooking by itself, and everything does soften over time, which is fantastic. All right, I'm gonna pause here, see if any questions. For those just joining, today I'm making a cough relief and lung-nourishing, throat-nourishing, moisturizing soup for conditions where it's really dry heat, and a lot of it is eliminating toxicity as well. And so if you go back, I will repost this both on YouTube and here on how to make this, and just explaining the breakdown of all the ingredients in this soup pack, and added one of my own as well on top of the vegetable base and the meat base. So there is some premise. If you're buying soup packs, you don't have to think much about soup design. However, if you're gonna add stuff to it, definitely consider, oh, what am I adding and why? So that in a way the balance doesn't contradict each other. And that's the premise of like the Chinese medicine piece. It's balancing yin and yang, right? Are you yin deficiency? Are you yang deficiency? You don't want something that's warming and cooling too, because it just kind of doesn't make sense from a design perspective. So anyway, thank you all for joining. It was a quick soup today, really fast to make, super easy, especially if you're using pre-made soup packs. I didn't have to go and collect my ingredients. All right, any questions? Drop them here and I promise I'll answer. But if not, thank you for joining today. And I will post the full post later, both on the blog, all ingredient list, as well as the additional ingredients I added and what the benefits are. So if you have any questions, happy to hang around. Thanks, Vince. Enjoy. Well, I'll enjoy my soup tonight. I'm gonna make, it's funny because I think about what I'm doing for dinner. So I asked the kids this morning, like, hey, what do you want? And so like, hey, let's do a macaroni soup tonight. And so perfect, I'm making the soup, which will be the soup base, and then I'm just gonna make some macaroni and maybe some toppings. Haven't thought about it yet, but that's kind of the idea of my planning. Thank you, Sheena. If you guys have any questions, just also drop it in after I post this. All right, thanks guys. Have a good day, have a good night wherever you are, and I will post the final product afterwards when I'm done. All right, bye. See, every time I have issues on how to stop this thing. Clearly not an efficient, proficient user of Live. No. Help. Help. Turn off moderate. What? How do I stop this thing? Maybe. There we go. All right. Bye, guys.